What if the deepest betrayal you ever faced didn't come from your enemies? What if it came from someone you loved, someone you trusted, someone you let into your life believing they'd always be there? That's a hard pill to swallow, right? But the truth is, it happens more often than we like to admit. We expect enemies to hurt us. That's part of the deal. But when someone you've shared years with suddenly turns cold, or worse, silent, during your hardest moment, that kind of pain leaves a scar. Not the kind you see, but the kind that quietly lingers long after the moment has passed. And for Johnny Depp, this wasn't just a quiet betrayal behind closed doors. This was public. Loud. Worldwide. It wasn't just the tabloids, the memes, or the court cameras, it was the silence from people he once called friends that hurt the most. The people who should have stood by him. The ones who should have said, "I know him. He wouldn't do this." But they didn't. If you followed the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial, you already know how chaotic and messy things got. It wasn't just another celebrity breakup story. It became something much bigger, a full-blown media circus, where everyone had an opinion, and every headline carried a new accusation or revelation. It was the kind of trial that didn't just happen in court, it played out online, on talk shows, on magazine covers, and in comment sections around the world. Millions of people took sides. Some believed Johnny. Others believed Amber. And in the middle of it all, Johnny was left to not only fight for his reputation, but to realize that some of the people he thought would stand beside him, just vanished. Recently, he opened up about this. Not in a dramatic press conference or some attention-seeking post, but in a quieter, more reflective way. You could tell he wasn't angry, he was just hurt. And there's something very real, very raw about that kind of honesty. He said, in so many words, that during the trial there were three people he considered close, who completely turned their backs on him. And he used the phrase, "did me dirty." Now, Johnny didn't go out of his way to name these people. He didn't spill all the details. But you could feel the weight of those words. The disappointment. The sense of loss. And naturally, fans and the public started wondering, who were these three people? What did they do? And why did they choose silence over support? It's not just about who they are, though. It's about what they represented. Trust. Loyalty. Friendship. And when those things crumble, it shakes you to your core. Let's talk about that timing. This wasn't something Johnny said in the middle of the court battle. It didn't come out when emotions were running high, or when he was trying to win sympathy. He waited. He waited until things had calmed down. Until the world had moved on to the next story. That tells you something. It tells you this wasn't about revenge or scoring points. It was something he had been holding in. Processing. Reflecting on. And when he finally spoke about it, it wasn't explosive, it was sad. Like someone remembering a lesson they didn't want to learn. He said, and again, we're paraphrasing, there were three people I thought would never turn on me. But they did. And if that doesn't hit you in the gut, think about it this way. Johnny Depp is someone who's been in the public eye for decades. He's worked with just about everyone in Hollywood. He's shared stages, movie sets, red carpets, and private moments with some of the biggest names in the industry. He's been praised, loved, admired. For a long time, it felt like nothing could touch him. He was that untouchable kind of famous. So imagine how isolating it must have been, when the storm hit, and people he trusted just vanished. Now, while he didn't name names, people started guessing. Trying to piece it together. The first person. Many think it was an old friend from the Hollywood scene. Someone who Johnny had known for years. Maybe even decades. Someone he had good memories with, maybe a few movies together. But when the allegations came out, this friend disappeared. No calls. No statements. No quiet word of support. Just silence. And you know what? Sometimes silence is louder than shouting. Especially when it comes from a friend. That silence says, "I'm not with you." And that can hurt more than anything someone on the outside could ever say. The second person. Word is, it was someone from his own team. Someone behind the scenes. Maybe a manager, an agent, a publicist. Someone who was supposed to help him steer the ship through rough waters. But instead of standing by him, they stayed neutral, or worse, leaned toward the other side. And here's why that hits hard: when the world is turning against you, your inner circle is supposed to protect you. They're supposed to believe in you. And when that fails, it can leave you feeling completely exposed. Then comes the third person, the one that really got people talking. Some believe it was a former co-star. Someone who once called Johnny talented, generous, kind. Someone who worked closely with him. Shared scenes. Maybe even shared laughs on set. But when the court of public opinion turned against him, they jumped ship. No more praise. No more connection. Just distance. And here's the thing, maybe they thought they were protecting their own image. Maybe their team told them to stay quiet. But to Johnny, and to anyone watching, it looked like abandonment. And that's the part that so many of us can relate to. You don't need to be a movie star to know what it feels like when people pull away from you in tough times. When the energy shifts. When someone who used to be your biggest fan suddenly can't even make eye contact. That happens in real life too, in schools, at jobs, even in families. Johnny said these betrayals weren't loud. They weren't messy. No one came out swinging at him. But they were quietly cruel. No returned calls. No messages. People who'd once been close suddenly became strangers. Too busy. Too unavailable. And that kind of silence. It cuts deep. What makes this all even more heartbreaking is what happened after the trial. Once the verdict came in and things swung in Johnny's favor, when the dust settled and the public shifted, some of those very same people started reaching out again. Suddenly, they remembered his number. Suddenly, they had kind words again. Warm smiles. Invitations. But Johnny wasn't having it. Because when someone shows you their true colors, it's hard to forget. You might forgive, sure. But forget? Not so easy. Once you know who really had your back, and who ran when things got tough, it changes everything. And in a way, Johnny's experience wasn't just about him. It was a mirror, showing us how people behave under pressure. How loyalty is tested. And how truth has a funny way of coming to the surface, eventually. This kind of betrayal isn't just a celebrity problem. It's human. It happens in friendships, relationships, at work, in communities. When life gets messy, that's when the real ones reveal themselves. The people who stay. The ones who call even when you don't have answers. The ones who defend you when no one else will. And it's worth saying again, this kind of loyalty is rare. Especially in places like Hollywood, where public image is everything. Where saying the wrong thing can cost you a job or a brand deal. That's why so many people choose to say nothing. But silence, especially from someone you love, can be the loudest betrayal of all. But not everyone stayed silent. One name that stood out through all this? Dior. While other brands stepped back, distanced themselves, or quietly removed any ties they had with Johnny Depp during the thick of the controversy, Dior did something unexpected. They stood firm. They didn't follow the crowd. They didn't release a carefully crafted PR statement designed to keep things neutral. They didn't pause their campaign or replace him with someone else who felt like a safer face for their product. No. Dior held their ground. And they kept Johnny Depp exactly where he was, at the forefront of their fragrance campaign. That decision, at the time, may have seemed small on the surface. It was just an ad, right? Just a face on a product. But to so many people watching, it was so much more than that. It was a statement. A bold, clear message, without needing to shout it. It said, "We see him. We believe in him. And we're not going to abandon him because it's convenient." Now, you have to understand the context here. The entertainment and fashion industries are built on image. Reputation is currency. Public opinion can make or break deals worth millions. So when a high-profile celebrity becomes the center of a scandal, especially one as intense, as polarizing, and as public as the Johnny Depp vs. Amber Heard trial, most brands start scrambling. Legal teams get involved. Crisis PR steps in. Marketing execs start combing through every endorsement and partnership to figure out how to protect the brand. And that's exactly what a lot of brands did. They distanced themselves. They played it safe. They made the kind of cold, calculated decisions that businesses often make when they fear controversy. To be fair, it's not always about malice, it's fear. Fear of backlash. Fear of boycotts. Fear of being seen on the wrong side. In this age of cancel culture and viral outrage, companies will often pull the plug on a person before the facts are even fully out, just to save face. But Dior chose differently. When others were retreating, they leaned in. They didn't just keep Johnny in their lineup as the face of Savage, they continued to promote the campaign. They ran the ads. They displayed his image on massive billboards. They broadcasted his voice in commercials. They didn't try to hide him or hope people wouldn't notice. They stood by him, visibly and unapologetically. And the world noticed. Fans around the globe started paying attention. People who had admired Johnny for years, who believed in his story, who supported him during the trial, saw Dior's loyalty and responded in kind. They didn't just talk about it. They acted. Sales of Dior Sauvage didn't decline during the trial, they rose. In fact, some reports showed that it became one of the top-selling men's fragrances in the world during that period. Why? Because people love authenticity. And more than that, they value loyalty. In a world where so many relationships, both personal and professional, feel disposable, it meant something to see a massive company like Dior say, "We're not turning our back on him just because things got uncomfortable." It reminded people that sometimes, doing the right thing isn't the easiest thing. That staying true to someone you believe in, even when the world is telling you not to, takes courage. It takes integrity. And for Johnny, that loyalty likely meant more than anyone will ever fully know. Imagine being in his shoes. The world is judging you. Headlines are tearing you apart. Friends are going silent. Partners are walking away. And then there's Dior, still putting your face on their product. Still treating you like the person they believed in from the beginning. That kind of support is powerful. It sends a message, not just to Johnny, but to everyone watching. It tells us that loyalty still exists. That standing by someone doesn't have to mean blindly supporting them no matter what, but it does mean waiting for the truth before passing judgment. It means offering grace when the world demands punishment. And for consumers, for everyday people, that loyalty made Dior stand out in a big way. People started buying Sauvage not just because it smelled good, but because they felt like they were supporting something meaningful. It wasn't just about the fragrance anymore. It was about making a choice. About aligning with a message, "I stand by the people who were abandoned." That emotional connection can't be bought. It's not something you can fake with flashy marketing or influencer campaigns. It comes from a genuine moment where a brand does something that resonates on a deeper level. Dior didn't have to shout. Their loyalty spoke volumes. And here's what's even more interesting, Dior's loyalty wasn't just good for the soul. It was good for business. By sticking with Johnny, they tapped into a community of people who were fiercely loyal themselves. People who don't forget who stayed when things got hard. And in today's world, where trust in institutions and companies is often shaky at best, that kind of brand-consumer relationship is invaluable. So when we look back at this chapter in Johnny Depp's life, the Dior decision will stand out. Not because it was flashy. Not because it was dramatic. But because it was rare. It was one of those moments that reminded people that loyalty isn't dead. That there are still companies, and people, who choose character over convenience. And for Johnny, who lost so much in the court of public opinion before he ever had his say in an actual courtroom, that kind of loyalty probably felt like a lifeline. A reminder that he wasn't completely alone. That somewhere out there, someone still believed in him, not just when it was easy, but when it was hardest. It's easy to support someone when everything's going right. When they're winning awards, making headlines for the right reasons, and pulling in box office hits. But supporting someone when they're under fire, when their name is being dragged, when their future is uncertain, that's when loyalty really means something. And Dior didn't flinch. They didn't cave to pressure. They didn't follow the crowd. They looked at the man they had partnered with, remembered the values that mattered, and made a choice to stand by him. That choice will be remembered. Not just by Johnny, not just by fans, but by anyone who's ever been let down, and who dreams of someone standing by them when things fall apart. Because in a world that moves fast and forgets even faster, standing still and staying loyal, that's powerful. That's rare. And sometimes, it's the only thing that truly matters. It said, "We believe in him." And that made a statement far louder than any press release could. So what can we learn from all of this? First, watch who claps for you when things are going well. And then, watch even closer who sticks around when things fall apart. It's easy to support someone when they're on top. It's when they're down that true loyalty is revealed. Second, don't chase people who walk away when you need them most. If someone disappears during your darkest hour, let them go. Their absence is your answer. And third, don't let betrayal make you bitter. Let it make you wiser. Stronger. Clearer about who deserves to stand beside you. Because life will test you. People will surprise you. But if you keep your eyes open and your heart honest, you'll know who your real friends are. Now, I want to ask you something real. Have you ever gone through something where someone close let you down? Maybe it was a breakup. A betrayal at work. A friend who vanished when things got hard. How did you deal with it? What did it teach you? Leave a comment and share your story. Seriously, I read every one. And I know, for someone out there, your words might be exactly what they need to hear today. And hey, if this video hit home for you, if it made you pause, or maybe helped you make sense of something you've been through, go ahead and give it a like. Hit that subscribe button. And tap the bell so you don't miss the next story we dive into. I've got another video coming up that goes even deeper, into why Hollywood turned its back on Johnny in the first place, and how he managed to fight for his voice, his truth, and ultimately, his redemption. Thank you for spending this time with me. These stories matter. Yours does too. See you in the next one.